Sometimes we need to duplicate and also sometimes group objects, and there are a few ways to do that in InDesign. So if we have an object, for example, the circle here, and press Alt on the PC or Option on the Mac and click and drag, that's a shortcut to duplicate elements in various Adobe programs, and if I hold Shift, it'll keep it level like that. We can also, of course, go to Edit Copy or Control or Command C, and then Edit Paste or Edit Paste in Place if we're on a different spread or a different page and we want it in the same exact spot from where we copied it. For example, if it's in lower right hand corner on page 1 and we want it on lower right hand corner on page 5, we can paste in place. There's another way to duplicate content though, and we can do this for really any element. It could be a shape, it could be a photo, and so on. I'm just going to click and drag with the rectangle tool, and I'm going to flip those so there's no stroke, and then for the fill, let's just make that white. I'm going to zoom in just by pressing Control or Command plus. So one cool way to create kind of a grid pattern here is go to Edit, and then Step and Repeat, and it will duplicate it in a specific pattern. So let's just click Create as a grid here, and then rows, columns, let's just say we'll do 10 for both of these for now. And then we need to set the offset to something that works here. So a little bit of space in between. I'm just going to do 0.3125 inches for both of those. And we have preview checked so we can see what it'll look like. I'm going to click OK. And then we have our pattern. So that's one way to duplicate. And we can adjust this after the fact. For example, we could change the color of specific squares in here and so on. I'm just going to click and drag around and actually group it. So I go to Object, then Group. So now I'm not going to move these individually away from each other for this example. And items do need to be on the same layer in order to group them. I'm going to just click and drag this over here to the edge, a little bit off the edge there, something like that. And notice it's a little bit large for what my purpose is here. So what I'm going to do is actually ungroup that. So Object, Ungroup, that's how we do that. And I'm going to make it a little bit shorter here. And I'm also going to click and drag around all of it and click and drag the corner and hold Shift to maintain the original proportion. Just make it a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to click and drag that over like that. And I'm going to add an effect here. I'm going to first go to Object, Group to group that again, and then Window, and then Effects. And I'm just going to go to Overlay, and it adds a little bit of subtlety to it. And I'm actually going to move this up to the top, almost to the page border there, instead of the margin. So I'm going to add a little bit of text frame above it. It just says Wi-Fi available. And I want a sans serif font here for this example, not a serif font that has those embellishments on the edges. So I'm just going to do Impact, which is a nice strong font that'll stick out. Make this a little bit larger here. I'm going to click and drag the text frame, the edge of that, something like that, but I'm actually going to adjust the fill and stroke. So I'm going to set the fill to, let's just say white for this example, and then I'll add a stroke so it stands out a little bit more. So that's just one example of step and repeat duplication, in addition to the other ways to duplicate or copy and paste content, and then a short little technique of creating that grid. In the next lesson, we'll rotate and transform some objects.